All right, for tonight's panel, let's bring in Sky News hosts Paul Murray and Liz Storer. Wonderful to see you guys.
Hello.
Hello. On a Tuesday. Look, let's start with The Voice. We're 4 days out now. I mean, it's been months and months we've been talking about it. 4 days out, we're nearly there. Paul, do you have a prediction of what the final national percentage is going to be?
Well, the funny way is that if I said no, that would be both a prediction and an answer to your question. Yes. Look, my expectation is no. All of the polling, it would have to be a bigger polling failure than Trump. It'd have to be a bigger polling failure than 2019. It's multiple polls, multiple organisations since July have all shown that it's south. My 2019 wasn't inevitable. What's going to happen on Saturday feeling is, I think that it's very close in New South Wales and Victoria. I think that the data we get out of Tasmania, which says that it's going to go yes, means if that's the case, then it's all down to South Australia. Now, again, most of the published polling says it's not going to get up in New South Wales, not going to get up in Victoria, but if it does, then the path is going to be a lot quicker, obviously. But you asked me for the prediction, it will be no, and even if they get the majority of states, they won't get the majority of people, and that in and of itself kills it.
What do you think it'll be, national majority, the national majority for no? What do you think the figure's going to be? Like a slight no, or do you think it's going to be as strong as, 60-40?
I think it's going to be resounding, and that's absolutely why Anthony Albanese knows this, and on Sunday was like really peddling back everything I said about legislating a voice regardless of the referendum outcome. This guy knows there is a difference between a resounding thumping, being crushed like a bug, and just a defeat. And he knows his own numbers are telling him it's going to be the former.
And you can see that he was starting to blame Jacinta Price.
Well, 100%.
But also,
it's already begun.
Like, how clueless is this bloke? That he goes to Broken Hill for 2 minutes to refuel, then he goes to Uluru. That's the sort of act that you do as the final push when you're the one that's leading everywhere. Instead, he's just trying to project this.
The photo ops.
Completely unnecessary, completely ridiculous.
Always with the Cobra hat.
Well, and I tell you what, if you want to know the greatest sign of confidence about what Anthony Albanese really thinks about The Voice, he voted last weekend, so he didn't have the pictures of him voting this weekend. That might tell you he's not quite really backing.
And I just think if he was a man of conviction, he would legislate it regardless. If he has, he has told us
how angry Australians would be if they've just been asked to go to a referendum that's cost millions of dollars, and he was going to, legislate it in.
But the referendum component of that was always the constitutional change. We always knew they could have legislated it regardless. We know that Dutz has made moves in that direction itself, so he would have legitimate excuses to be like, look, it's going to happen anyway. But all I'm saying is if he was a man of conviction, and he's told us many times with tears in his eyes, this is going to change the games for every Indigenous Australian in modern day Australia for the rest of history, etc., and so on. If he actually believed that, you'd have to believe that he would legislate it regardless.
All right, let's move on to Robert F. Kennedy. Paul, it looks like he might be on the cusp of launching an independent bid for the presidency, not running with the Democrats. What do you think? I mean, he is emerging as quite a popular candidate.
He is.
Well, even if he takes, he obviously won't be president, but even if he takes 1%.
Hey, George Washington pulled it off.
Well, he ain't no George Washington, mate. He ain't no George Washington. But let's imagine that there is 1% in a particular state that's going to back him, or 2% in a particular state, which comes off Biden, which comes off Trump. The reality is when a third-party candidate runs, they can be the difference between one of the majors winning in places where they had expected to win, and people basically choose Team Red or Team Blue as the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
Now, there's plenty about RFK that the hard left will like about corporations. There's plenty of people that still have their views, and quite rightly so, about COVID restrictions, vaccines, big pharma. Now, whether it hurts or Biden or Trump, I don't know. But do I think in many, many swing states there's about 1% of people that are willing to say no to either? Yes.
Yeah.
So I think this is quite consequential.
And then do you think this ends up helping Trump, Liz? Because if he does detract, say mainly from the Democratic voters who's running, but as you say, there will be Republicans who like him. But say he mainly detracts from Democratic voters because Republicans are still sticking with Trump. Does that mean that Trump is more likely to end up in the White House?
I'd say so. With someone like this guy helping him out, yes, because like you say, there are definitely going to be people in many states who are like, I don't want to vote for either of these. There's a lot of Dems who have woken up to the fact that their fearless leader is a senile old man incapable of leading, and there's a lot of people pulling his strings. He's more acting as a puppet at this point in time, and they'll be looking to vote elsewhere as well. So even if they may not have voted for Kennedy as a Dem, they would vote for him as an independent. And those Republicans that aren't too fussed on Trump would also consider this guy. He's come out with many Trumpian sounding policies and stances on from big pharma to massive corporations, etc. and so on. So he's run a very impressive campaign to date.
One thing I'll say is I think he'll end up being the preferred podcast and YouTubers candidate for people who don't want to go with the baggage of Trump and obviously don't like Biden. So that lane, as big or as small as it is in American politics. Now, remember, again, if we talk about, say, 100,000 people in a state like Pennsylvania, that can tip that state. Now, that's a state that basically Republicans never assumed to win. Trump won in 16. However, if the union message is the one that's going to move those 100,000 people, that's what brings Trump into play. So I assume he will have 20 different messages in 20 different places.
Sure.
But watch this space, and he'll be all over those YouTube shows that are watched by millions of people.
Yeah, and the likes of Kennedy have been on with Joe Rogan, who is the biggest podcaster in the known universe.
Yeah, although I haven't liked his podcasts on Israel Today, that's for sure.
I get it.
Paul Murray, Liz Storer, great to see you. We'll see you 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock on the telly.
Love you.
Cheers.